Why would anyone reject a claim of divinity, especially from someone like Jesus? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a theological commentary that tackles this very question, using John chapter 5 as its guide to understand one of the most pivotal moments of refusal in history.
Right off the bat, the commentary hits us with this powerful, almost tragic statement from Jesus. You can just feel the weight of it, can't you? An open invitation to life itself is being met with a closed door. And that right there, that's the core tension we're going to unpack.
So this rejection wasn't just some simple misunderstanding. No, the commentary argues it was way more complicated than that, with some really deep roots. In fact, it breaks the whole thing down into 6 distinct reasons, showing this kind of cascade of choices that ultimately led to this outcome.
Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. The analysis lays out these 6 interconnected reasons, and you can see how it starts with our own internal world, our will, our heart, and then moves outward to the influences we decide to follow. So let's take them one by one.
First up, the idea of a closed will. The analysis argues that the starting point for rejection isn't a lack of evidence. It's not about someone failing to understand the facts. It all begins with a conscious choice.
You see, this isn't about passive ignorance. It's framed as an active resistance, a deliberate hardening of the will, a conscious choice to just turn away from God. Think of it like this. It's the difference between not knowing the path and standing right in the middle of it, refusing to move an inch.
And to back this up, the commentary points to scripture that describes a long history of this very same resistance. So the rejection Jesus faced, it wasn't some brand new thing. It was actually part of an established, generational pattern of the human will setting itself against the divine.
Reason 2 goes even deeper than the will. It goes right to the condition of the heart. The argument here is that the choice to reject doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It actually comes from a fundamental absence of a genuine love for God.
Now, what's so fascinating is the contrast it draws here. It describes people who, on the outside, were incredibly religious. They followed all the rules, they knew the scriptures backwards and forwards, they were saying all the right prayers. But the commentary argues this was all just a performance, masking an inner emptiness, right where a true love for God was supposed to be.
This verse just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Their heart is far from me. The logic here is that if their hearts were truly close to God, they would have naturally recognized and welcomed His Son. So the rejection of Jesus was really just evidence of a distance that was already there.
And this leads us right into the third reason, following falsehood. The commentary basically argues that when your will is closed off and your heart's not in it, you become incredibly vulnerable to deception, especially when that deception promises you exactly what you already want to hear.
So the analysis draws this really sharp contrast. On one side, you have the true Messiah. He comes in God's name, but he gets rejected because his message is difficult. It's about truth and self-denial. But on the other side, you have the false Messiah. He comes in his own name, and he's easily accepted because he offers what people crave: comfort, worldly things, and escape. It's really a choice between a hard truth and an easy lie.
The fourth reason really zeroes in on another powerful human drive: pride, and our deep need for social acceptance. You know that constant nagging question in the back of our minds? What do other people think of me?
The argument is pretty straightforward. When we measure ourselves against our peers, it's pretty easy to feel righteous, right? We can always find someone who we think is worse than us. But this creates a really dangerous self-deception, and it blinds us to how we actually measure up against God's perfect standard. And the scripture itself just lays it all out there with this direct challenge. It implies you can't serve two masters. You can't be seeking honor from other people and from God at the same time. If you're constantly looking sideways for approval from your peers, you literally can't look up to get it from God.
All right, now we get to the final 2 reasons, which are presented as the absolute bedrock of unbelief. The 5th reason is a rejection of the established scriptures themselves. It all comes down to what a person truly believes about God's written word.
And this is where the commentary points to a really deep hypocrisy. People claim to honor the prophet Moses and his writings, but at the exact same time, they were rejecting the central promise of his entire work, the coming Messiah, who, of course, Jesus claimed to be.
And here, Jesus himself just makes the connection crystal clear. Believing in the established scriptures, what Moses wrote, was the necessary foundation for believing in him.
He wasn't introducing some radical new idea. He was presenting himself as the fulfillment of a very, very old one. This brings us to the sixth and final reason, a direct unbelief in Jesus' own words. The commentary presents it as the unavoidable, logical endpoint. I mean, if you don't truly believe the scriptures you already claim to trust, then how could you possibly believe the words of someone new? This is the ultimate reason presented for the rejection. A pre-existing foundation of unbelief in the written word made belief in the living word, in Jesus, impossible. The rejection didn't start with him. It was already there.
The commentary wraps up with this incredibly powerful idea. The very same words that offered life become the standard for judgment when they're rejected. It's a sobering thought, really. The choice isn't just about acceptance or rejection in the moment, but about what standard you ultimately choose to be judged by. It leaves us with a final question. If these are the reasons for rejection, what then is the foundation for belief?